with these two teams playing for the third time, previous games odds, does that lean you in any direction or does that have any bearing on this game?
Yeah, so whenever two teams have played each other in the regular season and they get to play each other in the playoffs, I always like kind of looking to see what the odds were for those games, just kind of compare and contrast where these teams have gone, if we've upgraded them, downgraded them, most likely upgraded them because we're in the playoffs now. But back on November 14th, Eagles were a 4.5 point favorite in Philly. It was a Thursday night game. Eagles won the game by 8. It was a very slow start scoring wise. Eagles were actually trailing going to the fourth quarter, and then they scored 20 points in the final quarter to win that game. Commanders scored a late touchdown to cut it to 8, but it was a pretty dominant win for the Eagles. And then about a month later, the Sunday before Christmas, December 22nd, Eagles were -4 in Washington. So flip home field, pretty much the same spread to what the other meeting was in Philadelphia. It was a very bizarre game. Eagles get out to a 7-0 lead. Then Jalen Hurts gets a concussion while the Eagles are driving for a second time to go up 14-0. Kenny Pickett comes in, actually plays pretty well. The Eagles end up scoring 33 points, but their defense fell apart a bit in the fourth quarter against Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is doing really well in the playoffs, so it's very forgiving what the Eagles defense did that day in Washington. But the Eagles also could have won the game if Devontae Smith catches a late third down that would have kept the chains going and given the Eagles more time to kill clock. And they ended up settling for a field goal, gave 2 minutes to Daniels, and they end up losing the game, although Pickett did play most of the game. So it's kind of a weird situation where we're not exactly sure how legitimate that win was for the Commanders because it was mostly Kenny Pickett. But now Jalen Hurts is back. I know he's a little banged up, had that knee injury late against the Rams. And that's why I think we saw the Eagles open as a 4.5 point favorite when this matchup was set Sunday. As soon as the Eagles beat the Rams on Sunday evening in Philadelphia. So I think with some doubt about Jalen Hurts' injury, this line opened a little lower than I expected it to be. Plus, the Commanders having that big win against the Lions on Saturday night. But now we're kind of, the line has ticked up. We know Jalen Hurts is probably good to go. Who knows if he's healthy, but there's no doubt he's going to not start this game. So I think that's why we've seen the Eagles get bet up to -6. In terms of the total at 47.5, it's kind of between where the two totals closed in the regular season meetings, where the first meeting was 49.5, and then the second meeting was 47. So that's where we are in terms of the market for the NFC title game and kind of how we got to this point. So I just want to know, Spencer, what are your initial thoughts of this game? Do you like the Eagles to keep rolling at home, or do you think the Commanders are a live underdog with what we've seen in the playoffs, already winning 2 road playoff games?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, those two playoff games, very very different ways of winning them. Obviously, you had the close game down in Tampa Bay, winning on a late field goal for the Commanders, and then they against the Lions going into Detroit, they kind of dominated that entire game. I know it and stuff. I had actually Commanders plus 10.5, so I was pretty happy about that last week. I mean, Jaden Daniels has just shown that he's cool as a cucumber. It seems like in these games. Now that the fact that it's gone up to 6, that's I might. It's still with it being under that number of 6.5, with it essentially being a touchdown. I'm probably leaning. I might still lean toward the Eagles because of the run game, especially with Saquon Barkley and that offensive line. But it's going to be close. I might wait a little bit longer to hold on to it. What about you?
Yeah, so if you like the Commanders, I'd actually wait on this one. We saw the Eagles take significant money right before the game against the Rams. Part of that could have been the weather and teams wanting to go against the Southern California team that were going to be playing in a snowstorm, and it ended up being quite a bit of snow, especially in the second half of that game. But the Eagles did get bet up to -7. I think the Commanders and Rams are kind of equally power rated teams. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles took late money as long as their injury report is clean for the rest of the week and Hurts doesn't have any sort of setback or anything. I personally bet the Eagles at -5. I still like them at -6. The Commanders do deserve a lot of credit for what they've done this season. I mean, I kind of downgrade or talk not poorly about them, but kind of thought they were a little lucky going into the game against Detroit with how they were winning games. I mean, 5 straight wins on the last play of the game. Didn't think that was sustainable, but they did have a great game against the Lions, a rested Lions team too. So a lot of disadvantages were going against the Commanders. But at the same time, they greatly benefited from the Lions' defense being so injured. They had a key cornerback, Amik Robertson, get injured on the first drive of the game. That was a really bad loss for Detroit just because they're already so banged up everywhere on that defense. Commanders also win the turnover battle 5-0, included a pick six, which I felt like really set the tone for the game and allowed the Commanders to play from ahead for pretty much the rest of the time. And if you just kind of look at the closing spread, Commanders plus 8.5 against the Lions, and now it's 6. I think the Lions and Eagles were actually pretty equal teams. So I think there's actually a price discount here on Philadelphia. I also like just kind of the on-field matchup. I think Saquon Barkley is in line for a huge game. Even if Jalen Hurts is struggling, Barkley is going to have a huge game, and the offensive line is going to open holes for him against a Commanders defense that's pretty soft. And especially in the middle, you could attack them at certain parts of the field and in the run game. And then I also like Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, getting a third time to prepare for Jaden Daniels, especially a Commanders offense that will be without offensive guard Sam Cosmi, really good player, tore his ACL last week. I think that could be a matchup nightmare for the Commanders, who are going to see Jalen Carter in the inside. So in terms of matchup and price, like the Eagles here, if you do like the Commanders, as I said, I just try to wait till game day, see if it ticks up to +7. But if it's 6 or better, fly Eagles fly. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles to go to the Super Bowl.